Hello everybody and welcome to this webinar around Iris Central, looking at what's new as well as a little bit of an introduction to what else is happening with Central going forward. My name is Nick Clark and I am the Senior Product Manager. I look after our MIS portfolio here at Iris. And for the next 40 minutes or so, we're going to be focusing on one of our newest products, which is Iris Central. We're going to cover a little bit of an overview of what Central is and how it can help your school or your trust, and then look in depth at some of the new things that we've brought to Iris Central over the past few months and some of the new things that are coming in the next couple of months as well. Hopefully that will give you enough information to make a decision to come and have a demonstration or find out more about what we think is a pretty powerful product for education. So a little bit, the obligatory slides about us first of all. We really do believe that everything we do should be about enabling educators to improve life chances of every student. That is the mission of Iris Education. And to back that up, most of us come from education. My background is as a deputy head teacher in primary schools. I was a deputy head for 7 years and taught for around 12, mostly in the southeast of England. Most of our teams also come from education, and we're really proud to have that kind of influence in what we do and that real focus on making things better in schools and trusts up and down the country. And we have a large presence in the market. You may use Peramail, you may use Iris Financials, you may use BioStore, or one of the other brands that Iris has in the market. We serve around 12,000 schools in the UK market, and more than 4 million families use Iris apps to connect with their child's school. We also have more than 1,500 independent and international schools in over 80 countries that use the ISAMS MIS, and a very quickly growing number of schools and trusts up and down the country that use the EdGen MIS. So we have coverage across the education sphere. Just put that into a little bit of a graphical order for you. So we have cashless catering, payments and comms on the engagement side of our portfolio. In the orange there, we have payroll, MIS to look after what's happening with your students, compliance, HR and ID management. And in the finance area, we have a full accounting suite, which includes purchasing, expenses, financial planning, invoice matching, reporting and analytics. And with the housekeeping done, let's get started. So in this webinar, really simple agenda this afternoon, quick introduction and a little bit around what is Central? Why have we built Iris Central? And how can it help my school or my trust? Then I'm going to give you an overview. I'm going to dive straight into the product. This is only a couple of slides, I promise. And then I'm going to look at some of the new things that are integrated into Central, including connections with integrated HR. So whether you use Every or whether you use what's built in to your MIS, you can now start to see HR data appearing in Central to use that alongside your pupil data, alongside other data. We now link with our own financials tool. So if you use Iris Financials or PS Financials as was, we can now integrate those financial data into Iris Central to give you up-to-date information about what's happening with your school or your trust finances in the same place that you can find out about what's happening with your attendance and your behaviour in your school. And we'll go through that in a little bit of detail in the demo. I'm also going to show you a relatively new tool which allows you to build your own analytics dashboards. We build scores of these dashboards every few months based solely on feedback from trusts and schools, but you can now build your own, or even more easy, modify the ones that we've created and put into Central so that you can build your own analytics. There's also some changes to the UI coming as well, and some really exciting things on the roadmap coming up shortly. But first of all, for me, there's one quote that really sums up why we built Central. And it's this. I was having a conversation almost 2 years ago now with the CEO of a reasonably large trust in the south of England, And he said, we spend 95% of our available time collecting data, and we only spend 5% of the time actually doing stuff with that data. And I'm sure if I could see you at the moment, and normally when I ask this question in person, there's some knowing nods. A lady the other day at one of the shows said, "Welcome to my world. That's all I do." One guy that I spoke to on a Teams call a few months ago said his whole job, pretty much as data manager for a 30 school trust, is remote desktoping into servers, collecting data, and then putting that into some kind of data studio or Power BI or a spreadsheet to understand what's happening with attendance. And he said, if I could stop doing that, if there was a tool that would allow me to stop doing that, that would save me more than half of my time, because it would allow me to actually do my job and not spend my time collecting data. So Central exists to bring data to one place. It's a very simple aim. Central exists to bring your data to one place. And that's not just MIS data. MIS data is obviously really key and is a really key starting point for most people. Especially if you're a single school or a smaller trust, the MIS data is crucial. You need that attendance data. You'll need your special needs data. You'll need pupil premium data and lots of other bits of data as well that will all flow through your MIS. You may have HR in your MIS still. That's okay too. We can get HR data from your MIS. But the power of Central starts to materialize when you start to bring in the other types of data. Financials, every HR, your own data, building other sources of data, benchmarking data, nationally available statistics that you might only get on a huge CSV file and be really unsure what to do with, they are all in Central. So let's come out of here and go and have a look at the product. And I'll just minimize my presentation. And behind here, there we go. We should see Central. Central is a relatively simple app. It is designed to be used really intuitively. It's a very modern space. It sits in the web browser as you would expect. The actual app around the outside is really simple in the way that it works. It has no unnecessary bells or whistles and exists to collect data from many different sources, such as your MIS, such as your finance system, such as your HR system, such as cashless catering, and bring them to one place so that you can make really impactful decisions about what's going on in your school or your trust without sending those spreadsheets around every few days. I used to remember as a deputy head, especially for governors meetings or particular times of the year, filling in spreadsheets when I knew that I'd done that data somewhere else before. That's what Central exists to do. And when you log into Central, you'll be placed on your home screen to start with, and your home screen is where you can define the report or the analytics dashboard that really suits you the best. So when you first log in, it will say, hey, which one would you like to see? And on my home screen, I've got a BioStore dashboard, but I'm going to leave that and show you that in just a second. For our MIS customers, we have a sync tool, which allows you to control aspects of the EdGen MIS right from the Central dashboard. So it branches a little bit further out. If you're in the market for an MIS, please do give us a shout. Central works really beautifully with EdGen. But it's really important to say that Central works with any other MIS out there. So if you have any of the other MISs on the market and you're not ready to switch, or you don't want to switch, or you've just switched to the MIS and you're finding that you can't get the data that you need in one place, Central is absolutely ideal for that. Of course, we love you to come and try out EdGen, which is our next generation MIS, but we are also really happy to work with other people and bring that data into one place so you can see it where you need to see it. And then we have the Designer tool, which is the last of the tools on the list at the moment. That Designer will allow you to take one of these dashboards, take it to pieces, keep the bits you like, rearrange it, put text on there, make it a report to parents, make it a report to governors, make it a report, head teachers report, whatever you want to do, and then either keep that data in here or export it afterwards. Over on the right hand side, We've got the usual array of a few settings in there, which we'll go through a few of later on, and the ability to log out. So it's a really, really simple app to use. Down the left-hand side, we have these categories. Now, these categories are where your analytics sit. You as a trust or as a school decide what these categories are called. We've done these for our point of view, and you can see there's lots of reports that we've authored in here, analytics that we've authored in here. We decide where they sit. We decide who gets to see them. Really important to mention in Central is that it's underpinned by a role-based permission service. So, for example, your current staff, your HR reports effectively, you absolutely wouldn't want those to be seen by the wrong people. You'll want those to be seen by a very small number of people in your HR team, in your trust, or maybe just one or two people in the office if you're a primary school, or something in between if you're a single secondary school. That's perfectly okay within Central. And we restrict those reports or those dashboards in 3D. So we could say, for a governors meeting, the governors should be able to see all of this top level data, but they definitely shouldn't be able to see the underlying pupil data. And we can restrict that. We can also say they can only see this width of reports. They can see these data items, but they can't see the rest. In the middle of the screen is the main event, is your analytics dashboard. These are rendered in Power BI, so we've got a heavily customized version of Power BI. It's important for us that this is Power BI, or that Power BI is involved here, because we know that so many schools across the country and across the world find Power BI really accessible to use. Part of the reason that we chose it was because of that. We want schools to feel familiar here, and crucially, if you don't like what you see or you want to change something here, that can be done really simply from within this tool. And I've started on what we call the Students' Wellbeing Dashboard. It's probably better called a School Wellbeing Dashboard or a Trust Wellbeing Dashboard, because this gives general information about what's going on in your trust. And we see we've got a two-school trust here. We've got two schools. One's called Park Gate and one's called Worrell Bridge. These are two fictional schools, always with demo data. The data is poor, so hopefully you can forgive us for that. But if we're looking at trust level, and we're kind of zoomed out at the moment. So if you imagine you're looking at a Google map and you're zoomed out all the way, where you can see the whole of the world, this is what happens in Central when you are on the very first screen of any analytics dashboard. So we see across our whole trust, there's 1,187 students here, and you can see that should match 764 and 423. It's adding up all of those numbers. So we're right at that very first step, that zoomed out level. It splits by male and female and percentage. Over here we've got the enrolment status of those students. Now ours are particularly poor data here, but we can find out how they are enrolled in our schools. Looked after, special needs, free school meals, freely available in one place just on here. We've also got physical and statistical presence. If we roll over any of those little graphs, we get more details. I can also find out what happened on particular days of the week. A lot not registered on Monday in our fictional schools. And the rest is controlled by an algorithm, so it looks reasonably similar, as you can see. But in your schools, there will be a lot more colour on there, and you would find out from the categories that exist in your MIS what's happening across your trust with attendance. We've also got detentions and exclusions by gender and by phase. Really, really easy to use. Over on the right here, every dashboard has a filtering tool. So I can say, well, is it a primary or a secondary school? We only have one type. Both of our schools are all through schools for demo. But if you had lots of different phases, maybe nursery, primary, secondary, sixth form, all of those phases would be in there and you could easily filter them. We can filter by school. So I can say, actually only show me the stuff that's related to one particular school. And you can see very quickly that data just changed. There are other ways to do this, as I'll show you later on. We can look at phases. So what's happening in particular phases? Just show me the primary phase. And again, the data changes. By national curriculum year or by period or a date range. Easily manageable. So we're at that top level. Let's stick with this analytics dashboard for now. One of the things that we can do is start to drill through that data. So we can use filters to stay on this page. which is great for comparison. So I can say, well, actually, let's look by school, turn off Parkgate because I know that's not got great data, and immediately we can see the data changes. But if I untick that, we get all of our schools back. And if I then want to have a look at what's going on, particularly for Worrell Bridge, I can right click. And the rule is here, if it's light blue, you can drill through. That's it. Let's drill through by school. That takes me to the dashboard that only looks at this school. So we've stepped in one level. On here, you have the same information, but it's now about one school. It's not about a group of schools. I've then got more information about my national curriculum year groups here, and the split of students and all of those kinds of things here, presence by phase in nursery. And I can start clicking on those phases and filtering them. So let me show you just what's happened in nursery. And it filters the whole view so that I can see just what's happened in nursery. And I can filter by primary. Or I can actually show me what's happening in sixth form with detentions. All of these things I can filter really easily and click again to unfilter. And this just pulls this live from the data warehouse and this updates in your MIS at least once a day. If you use the EdGen MIS, it'll update almost in real time, almost normally under 2 minutes. So I've stepped in one level. I can step in more levels and I can say, okay, well actually let's go and have a look at year 4. Drill through to student level. And I can say, okay, what's happening at student level in my school? Got the school here, I've got the surname, forename. These are all the students in year 4. And of course, in Power BI, we can export this data at any time. Wherever there's 3 dots, I can do all of these extra functions. So I can say, well, let's export that data. Just stick with the current layout and export that to a CSV file or a spreadsheet. There we go, that should just download, there we go. And that's it. That's exported that file, so I can then go and do things with that in Excel if I want to. However, what I would say is that Central really exists to make it less likely that you would need to manage those things in Excel. But if this is an easy way to grab a year group, no worries at all. And again, I can filter this page. You can see that in year 4 we've got 1 person on free school meals, 30 students in total, 15 and 15 equal split. And the attendance here doesn't look too good in this particular year group. So let's filter through and have a look at a couple of those students. And we can drill right through to the individual row level data. And I've picked on a particularly poor example here because this student doesn't seem to have very much. They've got a positive behaviour entry here, but they don't have any exclusions or detentions. And they also don't have a great deal of registration detail. Let me find someone who might be better. Let's see. There we go, much better example there. I can see here that this student has got some positive feedback. Now we don't decide this at central level, this is picked up from your MIS. So whatever is in your MIS will come through to central. And I can also see this person's attendance. And I can see they were not registered on Monday morning. Wonder why that was. Let's have a look at that. They were not registered on the 14th of November all day. Now, if that was an absent, I would see the code, but you can also notice there that I can see the comments. So if anyone's put register comments, they pull through too. If this student had any other rewards and conduct, had exclusion details or detentions, they appear here too. So we've gone from that zoomed out map view right in to look at one particular student. And that's how Central works. There is really nothing more to it than that, except for the powerful analytics that you can get by category and also by different product and different types of data. So a really brief go through some of these. We've got some admissions dashboards here. So we can find out occupancy. Really useful for planning what's happening with your rooms in the future and also seeing who's left. So we've got 2 leavers here, 1 female, 1 male, and 1's left due to sickness. Let's filter that. Really easy to see that. We can look at occupancy by national curriculum year. There we go. So admissions, really useful tool. Just going to bypass the catering for a second. I'm going to come back to that when we look at the new things that we've added. But we can also grab staff details. So these staff details come from our MIS. These come from Edgen, but if you use Sims or any of the others, they can come from there too. And we can see, well, what's happening with our current staff. Again, it will load the data. Here we go. We get teaching staff. Again, this is that zoomed out view. That's how they all work. It's exactly the same. We can see their roles across the top there, ethnic categories, departments, and again, these come from the MIS, not from us. Any teaching departments there, split by gender. And again, I can drill through. If I right click, I can drill through by school. There we go. And I could then drill in with support staff or teaching staff. You choose these categories, they come from your MIS. Let's drill through to staff level there. And there we go. We get right down into row level data about those staff. Really, really powerful. I can see here that the age categories that they're in, most of them are 40 to 49 or 50 to 59. We can filter that list again. So we can filter all the way. And then just click back to go back up to that zoomed out view. We can also look at a really interesting report. I was going to say a really cool report. I really like this one because it shows us the missing staff data. What's missing across our trust? And crucially, perhaps even more useful, what's missing across our school? Now, if you're attending this webinar and you are a single school, of course, you may not have multiple sites. You would just see your school in this list and you would bypass the top level. So rather than having to zoom through to your school and then beyond, your school would just be the only thing that shows. So it doesn't matter whether you're a single school or not. If you have multiple schools, they will appear in the list and you can drill through them. But let's go and have a drill through by school here. And again, we can then see missing data. Maybe it's required for the census, or maybe it's just some stuff that we actually should put in, and we can find that data out from here and return to the top level whenever we need to. We can also find out about staff absence here, really simply. We then have dashboards around current students, and these are very similar to the current staff. You'll notice that we've got a student data, the student well-being, which is where we started off today, and a student on roll. How many students do we have? What's happening with those students? Other built-in tools that we have are, and I'm going to come back to a couple of these, attendance. We've got a lot of attendance codes here. So we have some physical attendance. Who's actually present here today? Really busy reports, really busy dashboards, but with a huge amount of functionality. So let's filter by special needs level. And we can hover over that. No special needs level, but on the special needs register, we can easily filter all of our dashboards by this. Let's go to Oral Bridge, drill through by school. And there we go. Same kind of way of working as all the other analytics, but then we can see present statistics for that school. Who's free school meals looked after? Pupil premium. Special needs, again, we've filtered by that level. Let's unfilter by that level, or filter by that level again, and we can see who's late by day of the week. What's the attendance like? And a lot of this you'll see in other dashboards, but the beauty of this is that you can bring those little snippets together and smash them into each other to get really powerful analytics. And again, if I wanted to, I can drill right through. Let's choose a different year group. Let's go to year 2, right through to student level, and I can see then, here we go, here's my students. We've got somebody who's absent quite a lot here. Let's drill through by student, and there we go. That student absence record in one place. Really easy to see. No printing out of forms or certificates required. You can literally drill into that student as long as you have the permissions to do so. We've also got physical attendance, which works in the same way, but we have a codes breakdown on there, which will show you the actual attendance codes being used across your system. And again, we don't decide the codes, you decide the codes, they happen in your MIS system and get brought to here. So we can see these codes really easily. If there were more codes, this will expand. Really powerful tool. We also have information around what we call student registers, but you could call them anything you like. And these are the things that students are registered on. They might be free school meals, special needs, premium service children, or looked after children. Let's have a look at free school meals, for example. And again, the format of these is very simple, but showing different data. So this is all about my free school meals children. I don't have to go and collect this on a spreadsheet. I don't have to filter this anywhere. I don't have to cut and paste this or build graphs. This is here for me to see without running reports, without any other input from me. I've got my presence for my free school meals children, statistical presence is here, and all the other entries that I need on one page. And of course, I can drill through right to see those individual 11 free school meals students across my trust. We also have student well-being dashboards. So there's some rewards and conduct data there. Again, you decide what these are called, but this is behaviour points or whatever you call it in your trust. Really easy to see. As well as exclusions. And we have access in some MISs to wellbeing concerns as well, depending on what you use. We might be able to bring those concerns, and this differs very slightly from the rest of the system because we only bring in high-level concerns. We don't bring in the actual wording of the concern. That stays in the place that it was put, but it's perfectly possible to report on the kinds of concerns that are happening across your trust, because that's really important to know at trust level. We also build assessment models here. I've got a primary tracking example. Assessment is perfectly possible. Generally though, we will build this with you or for you because most trusts especially have different assessment needs. So this is a really basic primary assessment model, but we can build really complex models for secondary schools which reflect whatever data you have in your current system. Okay, and just going to move on. I want to show you some of the external data, because all of the data that I've shown you so far is available in your MIS. But what I want to show you now is some data that's not available in your MIS and how that might be useful to start telling the story of your students. Because we've got BioStore data. So if you're a BioStore customer or you're thinking of using a cashless catering system, you can certainly do worse than BioStore. It'd be really great to have it in one place. So here's a live BioStore report from our BioStore cashless catering solution. Again, the data is made up, but we can see, what are the most popular kinds of meals here. But also, I could go and have a look at students or staff who've taken meals, but I can look at average balances. Are those average balances a worry by year group? Are there lots of people who are in critical balance? Is that increasing because of the cost of living crisis? Could I compare that to some other data that I've got in this tool? So we start to build up that picture in one place, rather than having to go to lots of disparate systems that are possibly managed by different people. We can start to bring that into one place so that we can see those things side by side in the same tool. And I want to just talk about that when I talk about roadmap later on. We also have access to Every HR. If you're an Every HR or compliance customer, then you can see your Every HR and compliance data in one place in here. The Every HR data is pretty poor, the demo data that we've got, but it would connect happily to your Every database and start to bring in things like salary information here. This is a really nice dashboard where we can understand what's happening with our total salaries across our trust, but equally, again, just as we can with everything else, we can drill through by employee. Here we go, this is the Laurel Bridge. Now, it looks like there's only 2 employees for this school, which is why the data is so bad, but you hopefully understand the idea here. We can also calculate average pay gap and those kinds of things here without any other input. All of that available in one tool, in one place. But more than that, we have just started and we've got one dashboard live already. There are more about to be released. We can also start to look at financial data. So I've got some financials data about payments here. We are working with a couple of our launch customers to add live financials data into here. So if you're an Iris Financials customer, PS Financials as was, then we can connect to your PS Financials, Iris Financials database and bring that data here so that you can understand that data from a really graphical point of view, but also in the near future, start to compare that with what's happening in your curriculum. How much is that costing me? How much am I spending on X, Y, or Z? For now, we have financials dashboards here, more being released all the time, but in the near future, that comparison is going to be really important. Another recent release is Ofsted and IDACI data. So IDACI data released every couple of years to understand around those deprivation indices, and all kinds of other statistical questions around the UK education system and where people live. We can see this here. So we've got this interesting map here. I don't have a lot of time to spend on this. It could spend hours. This is publicly available data, but it comes out as such an inaccessible data set that it's really hard to get to grips with it. And what we've done here is to start to plot it in interesting ways. We can see that across the UK there's 8.7 million students with 26,000 schools and 2,000 and 2,500 trusts. A lot of those are good. Well, let's filter by good. Where are they? It's not particularly useful. Let me unfilter that and start to use the filters down the right hand side. So I could search for a trust or a school type here, and I could say, well, actually, let me just show me the primary schools. So let's just tick primary schools. There we go. And again, the numbers change. In primary school, 4.5 million, 16,000 schools. Let's have a look at local authority. I don't know, let's just pick. Rutland, there we go. Relatively spread out authority. And I have to say this data is not complete. This is being added all the time because some of it hasn't been available for a couple of years because of COVID, but we're adding more and more of this data all the time. Let's perhaps just choose a different local authority. Let's choose Barking Dagenham as well, just to make things easier. There we go. A few more schools there. And we can zoom in on them. And we can say, okay, well, show me out of them who's good. And we can start to filter by all of those different things, look at deprivation indices around those trusts, around those schools, and start to get a really interesting picture of what's happening with them. I can also, let me just clear those filters, and start to zoom in on particular areas of the country. I can also look and drag, which is really useful, and have a look at, if I was around Tunbridge Wells perhaps, I could just search by the schools in that area. You can see the deprivation indices, barriers to housing, crime, all of those things change immediately, and I can filter by them. So there we go. All of that can be added and changed all the time. Let me just have a look at, let's have a look at Academy Converters. So I can say drill through by attendance. So what's the attendance like for Academy Converters? And you could compare this to your trust's local authority or your area or your county or an area that you draw on that map or national. I filter by that and we can start to look at individual schools or groups of schools, last inspection dates, attendance, and loads of other features. And I'm running short of time, otherwise we could spend hours looking at this data. But this has been really requested by our schools and trusts that use Central already as a way of understanding what's going on around them. Most of them use the map draw function so that you can find a space and understand what's happening with attendance down the road from us, or what makes us different to those schools. Really easy to find out, and we have a lot more of these tools coming soon, but we're pretty proud of this one and we've got really good feedback about how this works. It's difficult to get in other places, it's perfectly publicly available, but in a format that's digestible like this, this is really powerful, we think. Just a couple of other things before I start to round off for this afternoon. A brief look at Designer. And Designer allows us to, let me just go down to a test, and if I just design that, oops, it's telling me it's already published. Let me just drag that and design that. There we go. This allows us to open up any of those dashboard reports, and on the the right hand side here, you'll see that there's visualizations and fields, so we can start to bring in, well actually, need to keep that, but let's get rid of this. In fact, let's just delete that completely. And instead of that, I want to drag in a scatter chart. So I'm going to pop that there. And I can start to add values and fields really easily. And you'll see here that our data items here, the data sets are really carefully named. It's a lot of work has gone into this by allowing us to pull out all of these fields so that actually you're not searching around in fields that have really difficult names and those kinds of things. And we can then add data items here and start to plot them on any kind of graph. Really, really powerful tool. Don't have a lot of time to show more of this, but essentially you can either start with a blank report, or you can start with a report that's already been done and start to twist it, to change it, to do some different things. These can be multi-page reports. This is a multi-page one. You can see I can add more pages to this. Save it, and I can use lots and lots of the Power BI tools that you'd find on your desktop. Now, while that saves, if you are a Power BI guru and you really, really enjoy working with Power BI, there is no reason that you couldn't use the desktop version of Power BI and upload your desktop Power BI here. So if you download an example from here, you get the styling and the theme that's all built in, and then you can use Power BI and put it into here and use all of the data sets that we use. If you use Google Data Studio, or if you want to output to some other way of working, we can give you a data feed to this to allow you to really get to the power of the raw data that sits behind here. Most trusts really like using the reports or the dashboards as they are, with a little bit of designing, a little bit of changing. We are also really amenable to helping you to get what you want, because at the moment, as we're developing this project, it's really active, ongoing. We want to make sure that we have the most comprehensive range of dashboards and analytics available to schools and trusts. So, we're nearly at the end of our webinar. Hopefully that has been useful or interesting. If it has, please do give us a shout. We can have a proper demo. You're very welcome to trial this with some of your own data, or we can have a more in-depth conversation about how it would work. It's very easy to implement for your school, and we think it saves hundreds of hours every year in terms of teacher time and frustration. We are adding more and more functionality to this all of the time. So we're adding more support for different data sets to the designer, and what that will mean, as well as in our built-in reports, that we are able to do something that certainly my team and I are really keen to do, which is to start to compare data. So rather than having a dashboard about students, we could start to bring in students with spend, students with financial data. We could have students with what they've eaten for lunch that day, and that might prove why they're so badly behaved in the afternoon, or whatever. We can start to bring in that data. Some of the other things that we have on the roadmap coming up are data collected from our parent communication portals, frequency of emailing, how many texts have been sent, does that correlate with attendance? Lots and lots of interesting questions that could be answered with that. As well as quite a number of other features, including a UI or a slight UI update to this to make this look a little bit prettier. So it's a really actively developed product. So lots more financial data, lots more HR data, and lots more external data. In the slightly medium term, we have a project to be able to bring in any data that is formatted as a spreadsheet. So you could bring in any data that you've got formatted from across your school, upload it here, match it to your students, and then use it in your analytics. And we think that is an incredibly powerful proposition that will be coming in the medium term. So there's some really active development going on in this. If you are interested in finding out more, please do contact us. The details will be at the end of the webinar. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and we hope to see you soon to unveil some of those things in another webinar like this.